Okay, so for your kit this month, if you had the Christmas one, you got the red and the green. Your A is your green and your B is your red. And then with the black and white, you'll have to refer back to your notes from class. I'm going to demonstrate with the red and green fabrics tonight for this one. So what you want to do is first make sure you square up your fabric. So I'm going to show you how to do that again. So you will want to take this, make sure that you're using your ruler and you're putting that on the fold. So go ahead and put this on your fold line to square that up. And you only want to take off just a little bit. You have 5 inches here, but we will be making a cut of 4 3/4 on our green fabric. So you don't want to take a whole lot off of this fabric. So go ahead and make sure you're on the fold line here and it's on the line of your ruler. So you want your fold to be on the fold line of your ruler in order to get a straight block when we cut this. And this will prevent any wonkiness in your fabric when you try to go to quilt it together. So now that I've done that, I can flip this over, and then we want to follow the rule of cover what we keep. Now on the bottom of this ruler, when you have the round circles facing you, the white ones on the bottom means I'm using my inch measurements, or if I'm using the black circles on the bottom, then I'm using that 1/2 inch measurement. I want to use the white circles on the bottom with the Creative Grids ruler, and with the green fabric I am going to cut 3, 4 3/4 inch squares. So the first thing I want to do is line this up on the fold right here. Line my black line up to the fold line. Doesn't matter which line I use, just as long as I line it up to a straight line here at the top. Then I'm going to go to 4 3/4, and I want to make sure I have a right angle all the way down. So here's my angle here, and there's my angle here. So I've made that right angle going to the corner of that fabric. So I go across the top, and this goes across here. That creates my 4 3/4 coming to a right angle. That'll keep my fabric nice and straight. Place one finger on this side of your ruler, then place your hand down on your ruler. That'll keep your ruler from sliding on you, and cut your fabric. From your green fabric, you are going to cut 3, 4 3/4 squares. So open this up, go ahead and keep using the Creative Grids ruler. Again, keep this on the line to cut your salvage piece off. So line up your black line to the top of your fabric. If you've got a good straight cut, it'll line straight up on that line for you all the way across. Cut off your salvage. And now we're going to line up to 4 3/4. Again, making sure we have the white numbers on the bottom. So we want 4 3/4, keeping that black line here, and having the 3/4 mark going across here. This fabric's double layered, so I can cut that. That gives me 2 of the squares that I need. Pick this up, move it down, cut it one more time. Again, make sure that I have the fabric that I need and I have a nice good angle, and that gives me my 4 3/4. So there is my green cut from my fabric A, and that gets me my 3 4 3/4 squares. And now I'm ready to cut my red. My C will be my same amount of cuts from the red, with the exception that my 6 squares will be 4 1/4, not 4 3/4. So I'm going to line up my fabric again, make sure I square it up. So I'm going to go ahead, square this up, line up my fabric to the fold, get a good straight line off the edge. Now that I've done that, I can open this up. I can take this, actually, not open it up. Take this, and I want to cut this to my 6 4 1/4 cuts. So I can go to 4 1/4, again, line up the top along the fold first, and then line up down that line to get you your 4 1/4. You need 6 4 1/4 out of your B fabric, which for the Christmas one is the red fabric, and then 2 3 1/2 inch squares. So I'm going to open this up, line it up on the line of my black line, and hold it down. Then I'm going to pull this down because I need to be able to do my 4 1/4 cuts. And again, I'm double layered, so I can do 3 cuts of this, put my finger on the outside, put the rest of my hand on the top of my ruler. There's 1 cut, lining it up again, two cuts, three cuts, gets me my 6 squares that I need, and I'm just setting those off to the side outside the camera view that you can't see those. And now I need a 3 1/2. I'm going to flip this over so I can use the black circles on the bottom so I can get an accurate 3 1/2 inch cut. I'm going to line up to the black ruler line on the top and 3 1/2 inch here. Make sure they all come to a right angle with the fabric underneath. Cut there. Then I'm going to twist this fabric because I need to have a perfect 2 3 1/2 inch squares for this. And cut off that extra fabric. That will give me the pieces that I need for my cutting. So I've got my green, and before I started the video, I cut my background fabric for you. So those are the pieces that you need to have cut for this block. The next step is to take your A 4 3/4, which are your green blocks, and we're going to lay them out like this. And I need 3 of those. And your C blocks, which for me are my white and gray snowflakes, and lay them right sides together on top of each other. And once you've done that, you'll want to take your ruler and you want to draw, that ruler's not quite long enough for me on this one, and I'm going to go from corner to corner on this. I like to use the chalk marking because whenever you go across the bias of a triangle, they get super stretchy. This doesn't drag my fabric. And put a light chalk mark across all of these so you can see the chalk mark that I'm creating with these. This will create a line for me to put my 1/4 inch foot on so I can sew on both sides of these. I'm going to sew down both of these. Just a moment, you'll see me move my sewing machine into view. So I've marked both of these now. All of these, I'm just going to pick this up, set it off the screen. Okay, now when you get your fabric, you're going to put it underneath your sewing machine. Now we're not going to sew on this yellow line. We're going to place our presser foot as a guide on that yellow line. So that 1/4 inch foot should be riding right on that yellow line that you've drawn on the fabric. So we are going to go ahead and sew down that triangle. You want to keep your 1/4 inch foot on that yellow line as you sew. As I get to this side, I'm going to pick up my next piece and get ready just to chain piece that one in. Again, when I get to the next one, I'm going to pick this one up and sew this one in. Now when I get to the end of this one, I'm not necessarily going to cut my thread yet. I'm going to stop, lift up my foot, drag it, turn them around, place my thread on the other side, lift up my needle here so I can grab that thread, and I'm going to place my 1/4 inch foot here on, apologize for my hand, on that yellow line again. So now I'm just going to sew down the other side of my triangle right on the yellow line. Again, so I end up with 2 sew lines here on each of these triangles. So you're going to go ahead, sew down them. Once I get to the end, I will cut that and pull these off, and I end up with 2 sewn lines and that yellow line down the center of these. I'm going to pick up my machine and put it off to the side for a minute. And now that I have this, I'm going to take and cut these in half. So So I'm going to take these, cut them in half right along that yellow line. You can use your ruler if you are nervous to cut them in half, or just be brave and cut them in half like me. And pray you have a steady hand that goes right across that yellow line. Cut them right across. Then I'm going to take these over to my iron and I'm going to press them to the darker side of the fabric, meaning that I want the pressing to go so that when it goes like this, the dark side doesn't show through on the white. So I want the seam to be on that darker side. So I'm going to press it towards that dark side like that. So I will be right back after I go press these. Okay, just for demonstration, I'm not actually using a hot iron on my board, but this is what I did over at the ironing board in case anybody needs to know. I first set my seams and then I picked up just the edge of this fabric and I let the iron go in and push this open and then push this down so that this, it then gives me my finished fabric. Okay, but again, this was not a hot iron, so please don't ever iron on your cutting board. It will melt your board. So now that we have these ironed pieces here, you're going to take your 6 pieces, I'm going to show you with 4, and set them here. And you're going to take your reds now. Now these are a little bit smaller because I have the seam in here. And you're going to put your reds on top. That's why we cut the reds a little bit smaller, because we put a seam in there. And you are going to place your reds on top of this. And this time you want to draw your diagonal so it goes from this corner to this corner. So it creates that going across that seam. So that when you open it, you end up with all 3 colors. So we're going to create the diagonal here. I'm going to grab my guide. I'll use this one. And I'm going to go from this corner to this corner, going across that sewn seam. And I always give my little chalk a little spin before I use it, just to make sure it doesn't have a piece of chalk stuck in it. And then just right across from corner to corner. Matching up my corners the best I can. Doesn't have to be exactly perfect. We're going to cut these down using our Tucker trimmer. But the best you can match up your corners, the better, but it doesn't have to be exact. And then, let's see if I can move that block just a little bit better because it got moved. Another trick you can do to get your fabric to stick together better, if you find it shifting on you, is you can press your top fabric to your bottom fabric and it kind of temporarily sticks it together so that you can draw on it with your marker. you find that it's moving on you. Okay, I'm going to move these and bring in my sewing machine again so that we can sew on this for you. Alright, so I've got my sewing machine here for you, bringing that cloth in. I want to run the edge of my foot down the edge of that yellow line. So you should be using your 1/4 inch foot to make sure you're getting a good straight 1/4 inch. That'll make your block go together. And you're going to run that right down the edge of that. You can chain piece these again, just like we did the last ones. So right down the edge of that. When you start getting to the end of that, you can pick up your next piece. Put it right here. If you find that one piece is wrinkling, you can pick up that foot, let it grab it, go right down the edge. And then I'm going to stop there, grab my next piece of cloth. And on this one I actually made a mistake because I have it so it's not going to go right. So nope, it's right. If I open it up, I'm okay. I have to make sure I'm going across there. For a minute I thought I was wrong, because when I cut I'm going to be that way, so I'm okay. And running again down that line right through there. And then I have one more that I'm going to do before we turn around. Just picking that up so it will catch by my feed dogs. Going right down that line. And now I'm getting to the end. I'm going to roll it back so my needle goes up. Pick up my feed dogs, pull this thread out, pick this up, pick up the chain, flip it around. I'm going to grab that thread so it goes behind. And I'm going to position this so my foot comes down on the opposite side of that yellow line. But I want to make sure I have enough thread that I can kind of grab it back here so I don't have any problems with bird nesting or that thread trying to catch with my machine. So I'm going to grab it right there, and then I can kind of keep that thread going back so my machine doesn't have any problems. And then going again, making sure the edge of my foot is on the edge of that yellow line. Sewing down this. You will end up sewing 6 blocks like this, which will ultimately give you 12 pieces when we cut them apart. I only sewed 4 for the demonstration. So remember, when you sew yours, you should sew 2 extra. Cut those. I'm going to move my machine again out of the shot. And now I'm going to take these, bring my cutter back over, and I'm going to cut these apart right along that yellow chalk line that I had made earlier. Go ahead, cut them there, cut them along that chalk line, put them along that chalk line. Now you have all of these little pieces and we've got to cut them down. First, before I cut them down, I'm going to go over to the iron and iron them and set my seams. Alright, so I went ahead and ironed this over the iron. Again, just a reminder, this is not a hot iron, so if you can jump forward to that if you don't need the reminder. When you go to iron this, you want to, 1, set your seam. 2, you want to make sure that you're not folding this in so that it's getting folded over into the bulk of your threads, into the bulk of your other seam. So you want to take this, set that seam, and then pick up the red and let the iron fold that over for you. And then you will end up with a nice flat block like that. And on the back, you end up with the seams where you have this seam facing this way and this seam going this way. And that keeps it so you have a nice flat block and the seams aren't fighting each other on the back of your block. So that is how you want to make sure you press this. Then we will be using our tucker trimmer. Now with the, pardon my reach, with the tucker trimmer there is a couple of lines that you'll be using. We're going to trim this down to a 3.5. So the first thing that you want to do when we do this is you just want to line up your 3.5 inch line. So you're going to line up that 3.5 inch line and you want it to go across here. And you want to try as much as you can to line it up on this seam here. But we're not super worried about it being lined up on this seam yet because I can move that just a little bit. But we want to line it up as much as we can. So we want to move it back and forth as we can to line up here. Now what we do want to make sure that we do when we do this is that we have enough on the inside here to cut away. And we have enough here to cut away. So you can see that's why I make my blocks bigger than what I need. So I'm going to line this line up here and I want this line on my seam, but I still have enough underneath here that when I flip this around I can cut it away. So I want that straight line here going up my one seam. And I want the dashed line going across my center seam. And I'm going to push down and I'm going to trim and trim. Now that I've trimmed this side, I have that triangle that I can pick up and turn around. I'm going to pick it up, I'm going to turn it around, I'm going to have the red triangle now that will fit perfectly inside my 3.5. This doesn't fit so nice. But as soon as I bring it all into perfect alignment, you'll see that this black line all of a sudden magically fits right inside that seam. Now I can cut off these two sides and that will give me my perfect points for my triangle, which will then fit into my block. I'm going to do that for you one more time. So again, we're working with this one this time and this one at the 3.5. So go ahead, put your seam in here first, line it up here, and feel free to rewind this video, fast forward it, stop it as many times as you need to till you get this down pat. So right here again you can see that I have my 3.5 line going down this center seam. I have this black line going right here. I'm not worried that it's not pointed directly to this point here, because I'm going to be making a new point. And I'm not worried that it's not pointed to this exact corner here. All I care about is it's on this seam and it's on this dashed line, because I'm going to make my points. Then I'm going to cut it, hold it down. The best way to hold this ruler down is put a pinky here, put those non-grippy things on it, put your hand down flat, and then cut. Pull away that fabric, pick it up, flip it around. Now put the red inside. You put the red inside. Now you can line it up to that seam. Now this is where it's important that this lines up and this lines up on your seam. We don't want it to not line up now. And then trim away that outside fabric. Trim it away. Trim it away. And now we have more of our blocks. You're going to end up with 12 of those to work with. Okay, so now I have all 12 of those blocks cut, and now I'm going to lay them out. Make sure you have your pattern next to you, because you're going to have to kind of switch your blocks around until you find the correct order. If you follow your pattern on the outside, it will help you to get them all in the right places. And then you lay them out. I have little tags on mine to help me remember where they go. And then you lay those squares that we cut earlier on the inside. And you place them here, and that is what your block should look like. You will sew this one to this one, this one to this one, and then this to this, and that gives you your little four square, your little square. And then you sew this square to this square, this square to this square, this square to this square, and that gives you your finished block for the month. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email. Have a good month. See you in February.